Bloomberg wrote a terrible article about us.
How do you push through something like that? And what did those incidents do to change your leadership style?
I'm literally going to tear up. I'm getting chills. There's this guy, Sam.
How do you sit in front of a candidate, potentially very smart candidate, right? The smart candidates sometimes are the worst.
We see loneliness as a disease in the same way as any other chronic disease.
How do you personally measure success in life? What does success look like for you?
I learned a lot about what to do and a lot about what not to do.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing in the healthcare industry, what would you change? Welcome to Mork Unfiltered, folks. Today's guest is one of the most purpose-driven and inspiring entrepreneurs in the healthcare space. Someone who saw a deeply personal need and met it with innovation and scaled it into something truly magnificent that has scaled across the country and impacted countless lives. Andrew Parker is the founder and CEO of Papa.com, a fast-growing platform that connects older adults with Papa Pals, trained companions who provide everything from errands and rides to conversation and connection. The stats on this company and what he has achieved are simply remarkable. As of now, delivering over 2.6 million visits, last I was able to research, across more than 7,300 cities across the states. Before founding Papa, Andrew helped grow MD Live as one of the nation's leading telehealth platforms. He is a Y Combinator alum and Florida native, and a vocal advocate of trust, transparency, and building healthcare solutions that treat people, not just patients. Today, we're going to dive into the messy middle of success, what it takes to really build a meaningful and impactful company in this space, not just the wins, but also the setbacks, the challenges, the conflicts, and everything in the middle. This and what it demands and the resilience that is involved. And we'll explore why Andrew believes that connection isn't just a service, connection is the cure. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. First off, one of the things I always love to do when I meet with entrepreneurs, who have built something as amazing as you have, is I'm always intrigued by understanding the why. I think there's been so much publications of where startup success comes from. And one of the most profound books that impacted me was a book called Exponential Organizations, which maybe you've read. And they talk about the importance of what they call massive transformational purpose and just how energizing that can be, not just for the founders, but also for the employees and the culture as a whole. So tell us a little bit about the backstory, the Papa story, and where this all came from.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I started Papa in 2017, but I really came up with the idea originally in 2015. And it started as a simple thing, which was I called my cousin and said, hey, you always have ideas. I always have ideas. Why don't we meet up together and see if we could form a business? And I had thousands of ideas since then, some of the craziest things you've ever heard of. One idea was a Rosetta Stone for babies, which I thought was pretty good, but ultimately didn't have a passion about any of those ideas really. And so I came together with my cousin and we're talking about, we should consider on-demand assistance. We should maybe build like an Uber for assistance. And he's like, well, Papa, our grandfather, needs a lot of help and services and he needs companionship. He doesn't need personal care. He didn't need bathing. He didn't need 40 hours a week. He just needed temporary support. And I said, why don't we create on-demand assistance for Papa? And so we really came up with this concept originally to support my grandfather, who was kind of not yet at the stage where he needed full-blown home care, but there was really nothing that existed. And so I put up a Facebook post and said, who wants to be a pal to Papa? And it wasn't a viral response or anything, but some people applied and ultimately chose a pal that we paired with him, and he absolutely loved it. And my grandpa didn't love anything, let alone a stranger coming to the home. So I figured if Papa loves it, the world will love it. And I think that gave us enough confidence to leave my job, or at least me enough confidence to leave my job and start Papa full time.
Why did something like that matter so much to you personally? I mean, obviously, when we look at the statistics, particularly in this country, we are seeing what a lot of people are saying is an epidemic of loneliness, right? I think the statistics among seniors is something like 25% of people over 60 don't get a visit ever. Is it that bad?
25% of seniors are either in danger or likely to be in danger for what's called being an elder orphan, meaning they have no family whatsoever. So it's not like their kid lives an hour away or their sister lives somewhere far. They literally don't have a husband, a wife, a daughter, a cousin, no one. 25%, which is hard to even imagine. And so we see loneliness as a disease in the same way as any other chronic disease. And I think everyone understands now that it manifests in your body and your health in different ways. And when you look at an older adult who's not tech enabled, essentially, and doesn't go to the gym and doesn't live in beautiful Miami, they're just literally sitting there on the couch by themselves all the time. And so, though my grandpa did have family support, it was also hard for my family. There's significant number of people in America that are family caregivers, probably many listening to this podcast or in the audience. And so how do you help both the individual who is lonely and also the family who needs additional support?
What was the first moment where you really felt that this kind of morphed from being more than just, something to help your grandfather and a potential business into more of a calling? Was there a moment particularly that you can recall?
100%. I mean, when I started Papa, it was actually more of just like a fun project. Like, oh, we could get Papa a pal. We could put up a post. We could get someone to provide services. And so, we're going to build an app. It's going to be like a Tinder for elder caregiving. And that was kind of the idea. And then so after work and on weekends, sometimes during work, I would work with a team in Argentina and build a simple mobile app to be able to swipe left, swipe right, choose your companion and connect to a pal. But I was working at MD Live at the time, and I was thinking, I really have this cool idea, like it's not really working, but I got one user to use it, and that person really loved it. Papa loved it. If I just quit and focus on this full time, I can make it into a business. And I did it. I left MD Live in May of 2017, and kind of just wasn't a lot of evidence it was a good idea, other than the maybe 2, 3, 4 people that I had gotten to use my crappy experience. And I just think it was so powerful recognizing how much the older people themselves loved it. And Y Combinator talks about like it's better to have somebody or people using a product where 100 people love it versus 1 million people that just download it and kind of move on. And I'm like, well, I don't have 100 people that love it. I have 4, I have 6. And for me, as crazy as that sounds, there was enough confidence and evidence that this is actually meaningful, not only for my grandpa, which I solved the problem for, but likely other older adults across the country.
Was there a particular senior citizen that you remember in the early days that kind of really drove home, like hit the heart about how this was influencing them?
I'm literally going to tear up. I'm getting chills. There's this guy, Sam. There's no one like Sam. I mean, it's seriously pretty emotional. This guy was one of our early members, funniest guy ever, grew up in Chicago. He was the driver for the Italians. He told me, everyone thinks the Italians, the mob, they have a bad name, but I was their driver. And so he was very proud of that. He seemed to stay in the safe arena of the responsibilities, but he needed support. He was super alone. But what was interesting about Sam was he was one of the funniest people I've ever met. And we built a relationship, both he was using Papa as a service, but he loved it so much that every day he would call our call center and say, hey, can I talk to Austin in the call center? I just love Austin in the call center. Can I talk to Emily in the call center? How's Emily doing? I just want you to know, Emily, Austin, best care team coordinators, and our pals, which he always called drivers. I just absolutely love them. Sam sadly passed away. We did really cool things together, actually. Him and I went on the Today Show together with Megyn Kelly, who's now become even more famous. So his need for Papa and then the service that we provided him was very impactful. We actually celebrated his 100th birthday, where all of Papa came in, and we had a pal show up at his favorite, I think it was like a Denny's, and they made him a special cake for his 100th birthday. Keep in mind, he was an elder orphan. He had absolutely no one. And the pal showed up and we did a Zoom where the entire Papa company at the time was like 100 people celebrating his birthday, which was honestly amazing.
Expand a little bit on that, because I noticed kind of your reaction when I first started asking that question. I mean, how did that actually make you feel inside to have that impact on another human being who had nobody?
It's amazing. I mean, what's funny is I sometimes say that Papa is better. Like, I think of myself as a very kind and good person, but like Papa is orders of magnitude more kind than me. And sometimes I feel like I can't actually live up to the Papa, oh, you're solving loneliness, you're doing all these things, but I do my best. And I just think I'm really proud of it. I mean, business and running a company and, raising money and finance and P&L and sales and et cetera, all the business components is obviously a critical component. But at the end of the day, like no matter what happens, we've impacted millions of people's lives and engaged them with a service that they otherwise would have been completely by themselves. And so for me, like it's, what do they say, doing well by doing good. I mean, we by definition are that. And I think that's a big reason that a majority of the people that work at Papa, our full-time employees, our care team, which we call our call center, as well as our pals. I mean, we have 25,000 pals that are active on a quarterly basis. Probably over 250,000 people have signed up and become a pal and done a visit since we started. And so not only are we helping older people, but we're also helping pals, which want to make money, but also want to be part of a mission and give back. So I try my best to live up to the beauty and positivity that Papa brings. And, I'm very inspired by our company and the people that help bring it to life. I'm just one person in a cog, essentially.
Well, yeah, but it all starts with one person, right? At the end of the day. It's often said when you look at some of the world's best companies, companies like Patagonia come to mind. In Europe, there's one of the world's leading retailers company, French company called Decathlon. They're considered, I think, the number 3 sporting good retail in the world, 100,000 employees. And I was able to interview their CEO a couple weeks ago. And she talked a lot about the importance of purpose in an organization. What is the purpose statement of Papa?
It's interesting. We have a mission statement and then we have a vision statement. And it actually took me so long to try to figure out what is the difference between a mission and a vision. I still not even.
We can talk about that offline.
I'm not sure I get it, but for us, we imagine a world where no one has to go at it alone. But then, like, what does that mean practically? We also mean that we're building a new kind of care, which is built on human connection. And we believe when you pair those things together, you can, of course, create a really beautiful service that helps people be less lonely, but you also can impact their health outcomes, lower costs for the healthcare system, and really do the things that are most important for that member in alignment with you're also their companion. So I think it really marries companionship with a tactical element of these people need a lot of help. It's not just that they're old and lonely. That's definitely critical, but they also don't go to the doctor. Every time they have a stomach ache, they go to the hospital. They don't take their medicine. They're not eating healthy. And so how do we marry those two things together? And our organization at Papa is really inspired by both. And without one, there's no other, because we feel it's a critical element of our business that members absolutely love Papa. And if you love something, you engage with it. And if you engage with it, it could provide you value in ways that maybe you didn't initially expect.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, in the world, we have so many problems, right? I think any of us out there in the audience today, you turn on the news or you watch CNN or Fox or whatever it is that you watch, and it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news. And the challenging thing as well is end up that if we really want to solve a lot of these problems, we need to have people who are really engaged with what they do. And it seems that you guys have really built a culture where folks are engaged. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, when you're interviewing and recruiting people to go work at Papa, and you're trying to scale an organization the way you have, and you've reached this status of growth and revenues and all the metrics and stuff that we're told are so important, which, yeah, they're important, but they're a result of a great business. How do you ensure that the new people that you're bringing in continue to nurture that culture and actually make it grow?
I mean, everyone that joins a company is part of the culture. I think I misunderstood what it means to develop culture, because me personally, I'm open, I'm transparent, I'm fun, I'm really engaged. I want to drive the business forward. But just me alone being that person doesn't make it translate to the culture throughout the organization. And so we have to structure it with a systematic approach that allows us to say, who is this person joining our company? And do they meet our talent needs? Do they have the skills? But also, do they align with the culture? And it's actually something that we spend a lot of time thinking about and looking for. There's people that, by all accounts, their resume and they're amazing and they're closing deals or they're building technology. But the way they go about it, not only that they're nice and caring, it's not only about that, of course, that's part of it, but how are they going to work with other employees? Like, our culture is very collaborative and very open and transparent. And, we are always evolving at the same time. And so to be able to thrive in that kind of culture is not typical for everyone. And just because you are really talented in one area of your skill set or you flex in some area doesn't mean that you're going to align. I mean, there's a good book, I'm forgetting the name of it, that talks about all the different personas. It's always the sales guy that's the kind of asshole, but it's important. And I honestly miss these things. Like, oh, they're kind of an asshole, but they're closing deals, they're building products. And so we've reshifted our mindset to say, no, they have to have all the elements. And our bar is incredibly high, but I'll say it's gone higher and higher and higher, and it'll probably be higher, going forward. I joke with the team that I couldn't get a job at Papa. I mean, getting a job at Papa now is incredibly difficult because it does require you to hit all the elements that we're looking for, culture being one of them, talent, skill, and just how you execute.
How do you recruit for culture? How do you sit in front of a candidate, potentially very smart candidate, right? The smart candidates sometimes are the worst because they're really good at fooling you in an interview. How do you actually ensure that if you look at Papa's cultural values, that person actually measures up? What's your process?
So each interviewee will have one of the values actually as part of their responsibility to check for. It's not a perfect science. I'm usually for vibes. I don't feel like I should be like more important, but vibes is a thing I look for outside of the talent element, of course. But then we'll actually put them in a real world scenario. If it's a salesperson, they'll join a meeting with the team, they'll present, they'll problem solve together. So it's not just like a candidate pitching to us and we're saying whether or not they're good at pitching. It's how do they interact with our questions. We try to throw them off. If it's an engineer, we take them through a case study. It's not just with the engineering team. They do an engineering project effectively. And even though some people hate that, and I actually was against it in the beginning, it's actually incredibly valuable to be like, oh, you sound super smart, but like, let's see kind of the proof in the pudding. Yeah. But then we also make sure they're not only interviewing with the engineers, they're interviewing with the product team, the design team, maybe even the strategy org. And so we try to bring different perspectives from the organization. And then at the leadership level, especially for high roles, kind of senior level roles, we will essentially, I don't love the term, but like we'll effectively calibrate to be like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And like, what are we looking for? And put it on the board and say, okay, does this person match up? So it's like choosing an NFL player.
Yeah, sure.
And I believe they probably only look for talent. But funny enough, if you look at sports, which I don't know much about, but I will use this comment anyway. If you look at sports, I think historically they didn't care about, does this person jive with the team? Will they work well? Will they be a good passer? Whatever it may be. And those people that end up not jiving, that have really good scores, end up being terrible and sucking the energy of everyone else. And then everyone else starts sucking. One thing I noticed that was interesting is when you bring in really high talent people, other people that are also pretty high talent, but maybe you say, oh, I wish this person was a little bit more fierceful in this way or doing better in this area. Well, you bring someone really talented in that checks all the other boxes, you raise the talent of them. And I'm seeing it in real time. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, Bezos used to talk about it at Amazon, how they would have a criteria, which is essentially raise the bar, right? If the person that we're interviewing is not raising the bar overall on the team, we don't hire them, right? And when I was at Google, man, the hiring system was brutal, right? It's you had like 8 to 12 rounds of interview. You had these crazy trickses where we had 20 or 30 questions per company value. And then people would ask different questions and we'd have different people on the hiring committees actually make the same question and then cross-reference the candidate's answers. And it was basically, that was the acid test, right? Is the person was either googly or they weren't, right? And if they weren't googly, we didn't care how smart they were and how many case studies they solved. It was just a no.
Yeah, funny enough, our head of people from Google. But I wouldn't say it's the same. I'd say we took a lot of the page out of their book, and altered it to ours. And I think that's a big lesson in developing a company and a startup. It's like there's many playbooks, but like, what's your playbook? And you have to figure it out yourself.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you got to figure out your own route. I want to touch upon you as founder and as CEO for a second. How would you describe your leadership style? What is Andrew's leadership style?
I would say my leadership style is I'm probably more of a colleague than a CEO.
Okay.
And it's not just for like colloquial reasons. I actually don't know all the answers. I know very few of the answers. And so I have a lot of ideas though, and I want to be helpful. And I just want to make sure the team understands perspective. So from a day-to-day kind of strategy perspective, I'm usually not in the meetings with the teams, but if I know it's really important or some idea that probably they weren't aware of, I help the team see around corners, or at least be aware that a corner that I think either exists or that I've seen before. So that's my main focus. I'm also like the Papa cheerleader, or as I've told my board, I am the spirit animal. And I really think that rings true. And that's not just about, being rah rah. It's not really that, but it's about keeping the pace and the energy and the tone of our business and how we operate and how we execute, and also what to be excited about. Like, what is the vision for the future? There's a lot of ups and downs in building a startup. We've experienced both pretty dramatically in extreme ways. And when you realize and you take a step back that that's just par for the course, I always talk about, you think about running a startup like a Netflix movie. Would this be in the movie? If yes, it'll probably happen to you. And so it's a little less shocking when the crazy shit happens, but the crazy shit will and does happen. And I think it's really about making sure that through those moments, you're not saying, oh, there's nothing bad happening. There's nothing bad happening. No, there's some bad shit happening. But like, we're going to do it together. We're going to get out of this hole, which is terrible. And maybe if we're lucky and you don't make up shit, maybe if we're lucky, we get out of it. And if we get out of it, it can be really special. And the people that believe in that and see that and also can bring value to that mission are the people that we look for.
Bit of a personal question.
Let's hear it.
So I noticed that your father's here in the audience with us tonight. And
hello, Father.
He is a serial entrepreneur in his own right in the healthcare space. I was curious, when you look at your leadership style and given your relationship with your dad, what are things that you learned from him that you actively sought to emulate? And what are things potentially that you said, I'm going to do this slightly different?
Does this podcast come with a therapy coupon?
That's an add-on package, but I'll get back to you.
I learned an incredible amount from him. I learned a lot about what to do and a lot about what not to do, not because he was wrong or right. It was just good to see someone else do something and go through the journey, which is ups and downs, and say, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, some things I can't help. I mean, trust me, there's some things that you cannot avoid. But I would say in general, my style is relatively different, but has a lot of the similar veins. Like, I get really excited and passionate and obsessive. And I think that's a critical skill and life, approach that I earned or learned or whatever, earned and learned from my dad, which I think is really positive and critical. Though it's just like any superpower, it could be, I believe most superpowers end up being also your kryptonite. Sure. And so how do you balance those things? And I think in general, I'm much more comfortable like letting things go in terms of like, I don't need to handle all of these things. And I am able to trust some people under me in different ways. So I think my style is very much like empowering. And I learned a lot about choosing really talented people and being obsessive. And honestly, it's obsessive to like a dangerous degree. But to be honest, without that, I don't think it's possible. I mean, to wake up every day and build a company, it's terrible. It's terribly difficult. It's hard. Like, maybe there's a positive thing at the end of the rainbow, but there's no way you could be doing it just for that. You have to like the fight and the kind of like grappling element of it. And my dad loves it, even now more than ever. And I love it. I really love it. I like the grappling part of it. So I'd say we're pretty similar in style. I'm just a little bit more calm.
I have exactly the same relationship with my old man. So,
they should be friends.
He watches all the episodes and he's like, he always tells me, if I would have been half as smooth as you are, I would have been CEO.
He's pretty smooth, I will say.
So,
that's awesome.
Well, mine was not. Mine had the smoothness of a freight train. But anyway, that's a different question. Elon Musk once said that, running and building a company is a little bit like chewing glass. I've had 2 startups of my own. They did not end up well. I was chewing glass the whole time. I think I still have some piece in my mouth tonight. But I wanted to dive into that part of it for a second because, there's a tendency in society for us to look at startup entrepreneurs, particularly the successful ones, and be like, oh, that's me. Oh, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it in 18 months. and I'm gonna, have the next unicorn. And well, we're in Miami, so the gold-plated Rolls Royce or the pink Lambo. No offense if anybody's got one of those, et cetera, et cetera. And I was wondering, kind of like when I did some research and I looked back on some of the setbacks and challenges that you guys had, right? I mean, there were times you had some layoffs. You and I talked about that. There was an incident, I think, in 2023 where there's a really tough article in Business Week, I think, about some stuff that, was said. Um, how do you push through something like that? And what did those incidents do to change your leadership style, if they did?
So I've always said, like, running my job, at least, which is hard to explain for the most part, because like every 90 days I'm doing something essentially different, and the company's evolving, the people are evolving, the market and industry evolving, the requirements of the board, et cetera, et cetera. So we were riding high. Like, Papa was 0 to something significant really fast out the gate, getting news and raising crazy amount of money, and doing it during COVID, mostly wearing Crocs from my countertop, which was pretty, crazy and fun. But I stayed humble through it all. But I really didn't see this incident, which ended up happening, which was Bloomberg wrote a terrible article about us, effectively a hit piece talking about a trust and safety issue that they seemed to think we had. And so we had to take it very seriously. I mean, for us, we're trying to solve loneliness, provide companionship. The most important thing is that everyone's safe and happy and healthy and enjoying it, for our members and our pals too, by the way. So it's not just the older people. We always assumed there could be an incident. We had trust and safety elements. We had a lot of elements. Actually, as a requirement for Medicare, you have to have more elements than you would imagine. Like, Uber has half as what we had when we started, Papa, compared to where they started. But ultimately, we also got a big brand, and it hit us pretty hard. So the news article was bad. The situation was bad. And, in these moments that I assumed would happen to some degree, but you never know exactly how it would feel, you wonder to yourself before they happen, oh, how would I handle that? I saw this guy did that, or Brian Chesky did this, or the Uber guy did this, or what have you. How would I handle it? And it's hard in these moments. And so what I did was actually pretty obvious to me, which was just do the right thing. Help the older lady, see if she's okay. Help, the system make it better and safer. Talk to our clients openly and transparently. Actually, 6 months before the article came out, I made a hard decision to tell 100% of our clients that we had one supposed incident before it was even confirmed, just to make them aware that, hey, we believe something may have happened. We just want you to be aware. And this is how we handle trust and safety. We're not able to always be perfect. We try. And here's how we handle it. And we're improving. We hired a trust and safety leader who actually built trust and safety at Uber, Airbnb, PayPal. He's a famous individual. His name is Rob Chestnut. We had him do a review of every single service feature without me involved. This was like a proctology exam on our safety kind of process. And we took that and we turned it into a roadmap. And then for 18 months, we stopped 100% of everything. And trust me, there's a lot of things we have to and want to do, around growth and, expanding and all these things. But we said, you know what? No, we are going to focus 100% on becoming the safest in-home company in the country, in the world, period. And we're very proud. I'm proud to say that we did that. But through that, it's, a riff, people quitting, a lot of blaming going around, culture being completely blown up, to a degree. And at the same time, we're losing customers, and we have to cut burn, and we have to fix margin. And fast forward to today, our margin has improved 400%, something like that, or some significant number. It was negative, so our trust and safety is 99.9% of visits go without a trust and safety incident. We added 30 trust and safety features. The coolest things, from AI, ID, interview capabilities that'll match a selfie with a ID and make sure you are who you say you are. Enhanced GPS tracking, which on its standalone doesn't work super well. So we had to come up with our own anomaly system to figure out when is the pal going to put their phone in their pocket, due to privacy settings in Apple and Android. Anyway, 30 other features, enhanced trust and safety, after 18 months of doing it, we finally have gotten clients respect. Members honestly never saw a difference because before that, 99.8% of our visits were safe. So,
Right.
but I think the most important thing to do during these moments is just do the honest thing. It freaking hurts. I mean, losing half your revenue and people leaving, and you were this healthcare tech darling, and then getting kicked in the face. But then in my head, I was just like, you know what? This is part of the journey, part of the Netflix movie. So I just kept going. And you find out through that all who is on your team, who's energized by making this mission a reality, who knows that the whole time we were working, we were doing everything thoughtfully and in a caring and trusted way. But when you go from, we were in 10 states with 40 counties to 7,000 counties. And that happened with growth through COVID. And so to go in person to virtual, growing 400%. And then the next morning, they're like, oh, go in person. And now in person out of nowhere in 7,000 cities. So while doing that, we tried our best, but something slipped and we took it very seriously and fixed it.
The flip side is that it's through crisis that the best leaders are made, right? If you look back on that period, at its darkest, what was your biggest learning as a leader?
I think, oddly, the biggest learning is it's very important to choose the right team. It is one of those corny Jim Collins books, like Get the Right People on the Bus. It's not corny. It's really right. And I think it's what I went to earlier, which is it's culture, but it's also talent. And it's also like energy behind achieving the goals. When you go from 0 employees to 20 to 700, and then back down to 200, you learn a lot, and you also figure out what doesn't work. And I think as long as you apply these things, it's really important to learn and look back and figure out what you didn't know. How the hell would I know how to hire good people? I've never even, before Papa, I never managed anyone. I was an individual contributor. And so I'm bound to make mistakes, and that's okay. But thankfully, we were thoughtful in many ways that allowed us to keep going. I mean, I think survival is critical, and how you show up to these moments. Like the amount of people and health plans, and maybe those listening to the podcast or in the audience that are like, wow, you did that thing. You went through the pain. Like, it's important to go through pain. What is the thing? Like, strong men make weak men, it's kind of that. And I used to say that I was a peacetime CEO, and then I said I'm a wartime CEO. So,
and now you're both.
I'm both. It's not fun always, but makes it harder.
Yeah, no, it's I do a lot of after 20 years in tech startups as well, and 10 years in the Valley, I get asked to do a lot of keynote speaking for organizations, and I speak a lot on resilience. Everybody's like burnt out and anxious and stressed out, with all the things. And now with AI, it seems like people are even more stressed. And when we talk about, the 5 pillars of resilience, and one of them is, do hard things, right? When you do hard things, the more hard things you do, the easier it gets. Right?
I saw somebody on X the other day posting about, the doing hard things concept. And I'm like, I recently thought about running a startup is like, if you do like a really hard HIIT workout or CrossFit workout or run a half marathon or whatever, and you go to the dark place, like you're in your head, you're like, I can't do this. I'm going to die. Or like one more step, one more push-up, one more whatever. And that is a moment that you're in a lot in a startup. But then at the end of it, even if it's a micro moment, because it could be like, we won a deal, like we launched a product, like the metrics were hit, or like, whatever it may be, you have to celebrate those things too. Because the truth is it's up and down and up and down and all over the place. And once we get now that we're through this, there'll be something else. Hopefully a different type of heart. Hopefully it doesn't cut half the revenue, but we're ready for
just a small cut. Just a small cut.
Just a little tiny cut. No, hopefully nothing.
It's funny because we talk about loneliness, right? And we talk about senior loneliness. I mean, the reality is kind of like you look across the globe right now, and it seems that people are more connected than ever, but we're also more disconnected than ever. Like there is a ton of people out there who are lonely. When I think about Papa Pals, one of the things I thought about is, eventually I want a pal. Why can't I have a pal? Right?
You can't have a pal.
I'm not a senior citizen yet, but but hey, but one of the things that people forget, and I was curious on your take on this is, and I'm sure your father has an opinion about this as well. Um, Nobody realizes how lonely it is to be a founder. And so, one of the questions I had for you is, when shit got really, really hard, right? And kind of there's all this anxiety and all this stress and all this pressure, and there's stuff that you can't necessarily tell your team, and there's stuff that you can't necessarily tell your partner or your wife. Um, who did you talk to? Who did you go to when stuff got really bad?
Well, one of my superpowers slash flaws is that I wear my thoughts on my sleeve, which I think has not my heart, my thoughts.
So you
So-
you speak while you think, kind of thing.
Yeah, just I really don't have much of a filter in between the brain and the mouth. So I think that's actually led to some positivity of getting through these crazy moments, because the truth is it is hard. But I will say these times put me through that in a way that I didn't think was even possible. Like I have felt stress and stuff like that, but this is a whole different level of anxiety. Like you're getting a phone call and 50% chance that your biggest client that's giving you so much money that you work so hard and it's perfect and everything's going well, fires you. The next call they fire you. The next call they fire you. And it's just like, maybe they'll stand by. We have one more left. Maybe they'll stay. They fire you.
Yeah.
I mean, that just weighs on a person. And when I was younger, my boss, Jose Montes de Moya, at AT&T, the only real job I ever had, told me that he never met anyone in his entire career that took no as well as I did. And at the time, I thought that was the
You
weirdest.
must have done door-to-door
Like,
sales.
what kind of review is this? I mean, honestly, taking no sounds like a terrible job. But actually, it really stuck with me for a very long time, and obviously still to today. And I think that's a superpower of mine. But I will say, in these moments at Flex, it is very lonely. It's not that I can't talk about it with my family, and my wife, and my dad, and my brothers, my best friends, some that are here today. I do, and I did. But it's hard to understand. It's not about talking to someone. You just got to sit with it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are trying to solve their problems. Sometimes it's just holding on to the problem, riding through the moment, understanding that this hopefully will pass, and doing actions that you can take to the best of your ability that would allow it to pass faster. And I think that's what it's about. So I think I just inherently understand, like, it's okay to be in pain, like, generally speaking. It's okay to feel that something's difficult. Like these moments, I ended up realizing were moments that I always dreamed of in a weird way. I didn't dream of the specifics.
You're not a masochist?
No, but not at all. But I dreamed of being a founder of an amazing business that changes the lives of millions of people, maybe more. Look at every founder that's changed the lives of millions of people. Like 99.9% of them have gone through some shit. I mean, Palantir is like what, a couple $100 billion company? No one in this room heard of Palantir. Maybe half of you don't even know what it is now until last year. It's a 17-year-old business that went through hell and back again, got so many different versions of who they are today, and they survived. And so I think it's just par for the course, and I think it's important to realize that. But it is super lonely. And even if you have others that have experienced it, no one's experienced what I'm experiencing because this is my personal journey, but it's also true for everyone. And so I think I understand more about loneliness now than ever before, and it affects everyone.
Yeah, no, I think you become an expert. I mean, I did 2 startups, did 6 startups before that, and I remember the last one I was in Santiago, Chile during COVID. We had to send everybody home. I was locked in my apartment for 6 months with a dog, and it was like, okay, Max, it's time for you to take me for a walk because I need to get out of the house. But yeah, it's really hard, man. But let's look on the bright side for a second.
Yes.
You guys have been incredibly successful on so many metrics, like the impact that you've had, the millions of visits, all the people that you're helping. One of the things I really love about what you do is also kind of like, Tony Robbins always says, the secret to living is giving, right? And you have these Papa Pals that are out there helping people, and those people must feel amazing by just doing the work that they do. And so, the question is a little bit, given all the success, given the metrics, given the impact, given the revenues, and all the bullshit unicorn status that comes with it, how do you stay grounded, man? How do you stay like humble? You're like I don't know you that well, but I feel like I know you so well, and that was one of the reasons I want to interview, because you're so freaking humble, which is just awesome. How do you do that?
Thank you. I'm humbled by that comment. Uh, I think it's kind of natural for me. I mean, I'm not. I like nice things. I will admit. I mostly am into experiences, but I just see myself as a normal guy. I really don't think of myself as anything different. Maybe my whole life I did get made fun of quite a bit. That probably, had some element of it where I'm just one of the people. Growing up, I was always very verbose, saying whatever I want, kind of a little bit of an oddball. My brother once said that you were always the weirdest kid, but being weird is cool now, so you're the coolest kid. And I cried. And that was my brother David that normally wouldn't come out with that. But I love you, David. So I think it's more about that, and also my surroundings. I mean, my dad has always been pretty much for a while, been very successful and wildly humble. Like why? Like too much, maybe. I mean, chill out. But I
The
think
apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
Yeah.
as I say.
that type of influence, and I think just remembering where you came from. My grandpa was an entrepreneur. Actually, every blood male related to me is an entrepreneur, which I realized a few years ago. Not everyone's running a tech company. Many are, but most of them, not 100%, but let's just say 97% are pretty humble.
If you think about this loneliness epidemic, right? And you guys have also studied this. Beyond the obvious kind of mental impact that this has on senior citizens, what are the other impacts of this loneliness that maybe we don't know?
Well, I'm glad you asked because that's a critical component. I mean, loneliness is, I think, obviously an issue. And we all could feel that, oh, if I was lonely and I was old and I couldn't drive and had no one to help me, that probably isn't a good thing. But at the same time, like there's some logic around, well, that also probably costs a lot of money for the healthcare system. Maybe I'll be using the emergency room a lot. As I mentioned earlier, maybe I won't be eating. Maybe I won't be following my regimen. And so pals become really the trusted eyes and ears of the home. And they build a relationship with our members, which is really our secret sauce. We're a tech-enabled platform end to end that allows you to connect to a caregiver. But at the end of the day, the secret sauce is just that is there to get them there, make sure they're nice and safe and do what we want them to do within reason. But the magic is between the pal and the member. And what we always realized is, well, if you could build a relationship and a bond, you could actually deliver on specific actions or tasks that are important to that member's health, ultimately for the healthcare system. And I don't need to get into a whole healthcare lesson right now, but there's an element of how do we engage the right people that are lonely and isolated and have specific health-related social needs as we think about it, and pair them with a pal and have that pal both provide companionship and help with certain tasks. And so we've shown in claims-based studies, which are essentially all the billings that health plans do to say, Aetna did X dollars in this service this year, and then compare it with PAPA members the next year, or two cohorts. And we show 20% total cost of care reduction, which, what does that mean? 20% could be thousands and thousands of dollars per person. For a health plan the size of a national health plan, it could be hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And so what we really are building is a companionship platform that is enabled to deliver on these actions that both provides value to the member, or as we call it, member-driven, and could layer in the value for the health plan, which we work with, which we call client-driven. And so PAPA is actually 100% free. No one pays for PAPA today. PAPA is paid for by health plans, by insurance companies, by employers, by retirement organizations, all with the hope you'll engage the members, you'll drive them and help them and support them, and you better save us money. And so our vision was we could check all three boxes with this very unique, highly configurable, in-home strategic care network that we call PALS.
And are your clients, have they been able to share with you, or will they share with you data that shows like the impact of the companionship on the elder person's health? Like their physical health?
It's a loaded question. But yes, so many of our customers are willing, and we offer this actually at the beginning of a partnership to say, listen, we think we'll save you 3-to-1 ROI by implementing Papa, and here's how. But we get you don't believe us. If we don't hit these measures or conduct these tasks, we'll actually waive our fees. It'll be free.
Wow.
And so we only could do that now, 8 years later, after studying this. We have about 50 health plan clients. We've interacted with millions of members. And through that all, we've been collecting data, understanding more about the users, and trying our best to get the data from the health plans. And ultimately, when the health plan wants to do this, they share their data with a third party, and that third party that we partnered with essentially analyzes it. And without our input, they say, hey, here's where you're at, here's where you're not. And guess what? It's actually always been good. It's been amazing because you imagine all these needs that the people have and we fill them.
Yeah.
But it's getting better and better because Papa started to focus on who is the right member. My dad, we're talking about my dad in the podcast, he's 66. He's technically eligible for Medicare. This guy could do 20 push-ups right now, one-handed in front of this entire group. So he doesn't need...
Next podcast.
Yeah, just him doing a one-handed push-up. He doesn't need that service,
right.
But my grandma, who was 87, who was comorbid, who had cancer, who was, far away from our family, needed it. And so we've gotten more prescriptive, essentially a Papa prescription, to prescribe our services and the amount of services and what we're doing to the right people. So it's become more of a strategic care network, leveraging companionship to deliver the value to our users and our clients.
And what's the flip side of that? I don't know if you guys have ever studied or looked at this, but I'm super curious. Like, what's the flip side of the impact on the well-being of the Papa Pal, the person that's doing the visit? What are they telling you? What do you see?
It's actually quite shocking. I'm trying to remember a specific data point at the top of my head, but it gives these individuals meanings. So Papa does not provide today, we will in 26, what's called personal care, which is bathing and toileting. We actually provide companionship. And so everyone in this room, everyone on this podcast can likely qualify to become a Papa Pal. They may not want to be a professional personal care provider.
Right.
And so you're essentially unlocking a new network of care, a new supply of individuals that are willing to say, you know what, I will help the older lady that gets Papa free through their health plan in my community. But they, of course, have to go through training, background check, and all the process, but they don't have to become a licensed professional.
Right.
They essentially get certified by Papa. And so we've opened up the market to a whole new group of people that are super mission-oriented. We actually had a member a pal last week. This is the craziest story. It was like I shouldn't say the name, but a big accounting firm, big consulting accounting firm's top executive, and writes this whole essay on LinkedIn to the president of Papa Danny and says, I've been a Papa Pal for 6 months. I absolutely love it. But I actually got told by compliance and my firm that I'm not allowed to get paid. I don't want to get paid. Is there a way that I could set up Papa to be a volunteer?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to get this type of story. This person has so many other things to be doing than helping older people, but clearly it's something that touches the heart of people. And it's not just our pals.
Yeah,
it's our employees.
It's amazing that you say that, because I remember I was coaching a CEO of a casino company that was private equity owned in Central America a couple of years ago, and he was doing all the right things in terms of being successful personally and financially, but he was like super solo and super lonely, right? And one of the things that came out of the work together was he decided to just reconnect and spend a lot of time with friends. And as a result of that, they started cooking together. And as a result of that, they started taking the food that they were making and taking that food across the city to give it to poor people and kids that had nothing. And the impact, like the transformation on this guy, was just remarkable. He went from being kind of like, the stone cold, super serious, super dry kind of, successful executive to just being a much happier, content, and more balanced person, right? And sometimes maybe that's just, we need a lot more of that in our society.
I agree. And I think passion is critical.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do. And you have to have that in order to get through the easy moments, hard moments. I mean, this takes lasting power. I've been doing this for almost 9 years. I'm barely started. So that's not easy.
Yeah.
So you have to be very passionate about it, proud of it. And it is very nice that this helps people. it helps people on all sides of the platform.
You know, as we kind of wind down a little bit the show today, I'm intrigued, and so I have to ask you this question: how do you personally measure success in life? What does success look like for you?
It's funny because Rummy, my wife, and I talked about this. She's like, "Why do you do this?" And I'm like, "It's cool. It's cool." Like, she's like, "Why do you do it though?" I'm like, "Because it's fun. It's cool." And it's kind of an interesting response from me. And it was actually very hard for me to come up with the reason, like, why do I do this every day? I do think in part, I really love it. I really, really love it. And it's fun for me. It like really energizes me. I wasn't that good at most things most of my life. And the areas that I kind of thought I was good at was pretty much turned away always. And now it's like, oh, that's my superpower. And so I just feel really energized by that. I love building something. Just it didn't have to be about senior care, to be clear. It could have been about anything. And I really think I love the idea of being an entrepreneur. I wanted to be like my dad, who's an entrepreneur. And I just like the fact that I get to just do so many little micro jobs all the time and have that ability. And the added layer of being able to create a new kind of care and help people across the country and maybe the world. I actually just presented in Japan last week. I was virtual, but still to expand Papa potentially for fun, but could be interesting. Is just amazing. So I'm literally living my dream that I literally set out. It almost seems like made up because of how much it is my dream. And I'm really happy that the things that, mostly I got made fun of my whole life for my qualities ended up being the exact ingredients I needed to be the founder and CEO I am today. So honestly, across the board, I just completely love it.
Yeah. No, you're super blessed. That's the way I would put it. I think
I feel that. Thank you.
When you do something like that, I was in a very successful startup in Silicon Valley. My wife left me. I lost my job. Everything just went to shit, and that that ended up being the subject of my first book. And out of that book, when I started working with a coach to get back up on my feet and figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life, I came across this Japanese concept of the ikigai, the reason for living. And everything I've heard you say really kind of like aligns real well with that, because you find so many people, I think more in this country probably than in Europe where I'm from, not as a criticism. There's a lot of reasons I love and live in the United States. But, what I found over time, and it seems like you are in the same kind of zone, is, when you can find this intersection in your life of doing something that you love, doing something that you are crazy good at doing something that the world needs, and then on top of it, get paid for it, you live a life of meaning and purpose, right? And I think that's what I wish you to continue doing. That's what I wish everybody in the audience listening to this and here today. I hope all of you guys find that too. It's been an amazing conversation. As exciting and as awesome as I thought it was. I have three lightning questions for you. I told you I was going to give you these.
I'm ready.
So here are the lightning questions. Very quick question, very quick answer. Lightning question number one: if you had one superpower, what would it be?
I'd definitely be able to move from where I'm sitting right now to anywhere in the world. That'd be pretty badass. Just like boom.
Teleportation, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like Jumper.
Lightning question number two, and this is my lightning question, but it's my excuse to get you back on the podcast.
Okay. Sign up here.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing in the healthcare industry, what would you change?
I would make a CPT code for Papa Pals.
All right. CPT for Papa Pals. And lightning question number three: what's one leadership trait you wish you had more of?
Intelligence.
All right. Cool. Well, listen, Andrew, it's been a remarkable conversation. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your honesty, transparency, everything you've done, the impact you have, building a purpose-driven company. This, folks, is what it's all about when you are successful, not just financially, but on many other metrics. And this is what it looks like. So I hope all you guys out there watching, all you guys out in the audience aspire to do something, not just for unicorn status and revenue and profits, but also for meaning and purpose. Thank you so much for being on Mork Unfiltered.
Thank you so much.